Okay, so hello and welcome back to another Unity tutorial. In this one, it's going to be part 3 of the inventory and hotbar tutorial series, whatever we're calling it. In this one, we're going to be making the dragging mechanic, but before that, we're actually going to change around ways that we do things, just a little bit. There's only a little bit changing, and it's just because I thought about it, and the way I've got it quite now is a little bit awkward, so if we do a bit of tweaking, it'll make life much easier. So the first thing we want to change really is we don't want to store the item on the slot here, because if we have I've got my own project open. So on our inventory here, the one thing I did off camera, which I mean you can do right now, we just want to make this a static class, so public static inventory. You want an instance of it, and then we can have the standard setting the instance. Now, if you've watched my other ones, you'll know what this is. If you watch my scriptable object tutorials, or just if you've used Unity before, you should know how to do this. It's just a simple awake statement, and then that. And that just means that from anywhere you can do inventory.instance, and then you can use all this stuff and reference it from anywhere. So once you've done that, we don't really want to store the items on the slot, because if we already have the item list here, we don't want to have to worry about keeping this and that the exact same, because it can cause problems if we forget to do something somewhere. So go to your inventory slot, and we're just going to get rid of storing the item there, simply. Cause some problems, but don't worry about that just now. So what do we want to do? Well, the first thing is we want to go onto our inventory, the manager basically. And so we're storing our slots here, and what we'll do is we're actually we're gonna just put this as a public slot, inventory slot array like that, and we'll just call it inventory slots, like so. And if we go to the start, here we go. I'm going to leave in the stuff we've already got. Ignore the red underlines, we'll be changing it around. We're just going to say inventory slots equals find object of type inventory slot UI. Wait, inventory slot, there we go. So that just fills up the array. Sorry, find objects of type. Okay, so that's that. And then all we want is, what have we already got in here? We've already got update slot UI. The adding, yeah, well, we'll leave all this for now. If we go to this is right, isn't it? Inventory slots dot length now. Inventory slots I dot update. Okay, that's right. So now if we go to the inventory slot, here we are. We want to, so we've got reference to the icon. We want reference to the inventory, but we've got that because it's a static class, so that's fine. There's not actually anything to change what we import, but now with the actual functions, we will be adding a drag and drop thing to this basically when we, well, not onto, I'll show you. This is just the slot UI, and what we had last time, we had it so that when we add an item, it would basically check what item is it and set the sprite. So we want to basically do the same, but we're going to say if inventory, so we're not storing it here, we want to get it from the actual inventory manager. So if we do capital I, because it's the class inventory, like so, dot instance. Now we have reference to the items, so items list, and then we need to give it an index, because we need to know which one we're getting. So the way we can know which slot this is without manually setting like outside, this is slot 1, this is slot 2. If you go into the hierarchy, you actually know by the hierarchy order. So inside inventory panel, there's the 20 slots here, and this is index 0, and that means we'll want index 0 from the list. So what we can actually do for that is we can say transform dot get sibling index, and that'll return here we go, is it item? Oh, it's not even an item, because it's an item list, so this is the item. So basically saying, if the item in this slot is null, is not null, so if it exists, then we want the icon. There we go. So let me just make sure I've done this right. So icon dot get component image. So we're setting the sprite of this slot to the sprite that the item holds, and then we're gonna enable it. And then obviously if the slot that we're checking, if there is no item in it, then we'll just set it to null. So that's that bit updated. That is all good. So what else have we got red? Well, over here on the add, we've got the problem with it saying, so we're checking if it's for all the items in the list, if the particular slot we're checking is empty, then we want to, well, we don't even, basically we just cut that out now because we're not storing it there, so that's fine. Obviously we haven't got removing items yet, but that's fine. Update slot UI and add item, and it calls update slot UI. And in a void start, I call that as well, just to update the UI. So let's quickly check if that works. I'm clicking on the wrong things here. It's just compiling. Okay, so obviously we've just changed quite a lot of stuff, so let's just hope that works. Obviously we'll fix any problems if we come across them. I don't think I've removed any functionality without adding it back in. Yeah, here we go. So we add, now as you see on the slot, it doesn't even store the slot doesn't store what it is. It stores it on the inventory somewhere. It's a manager, isn't it now? So now it's a manager, you'll see it here, inventory handler. I mean, that's a problem. Or is it actually? No, that's not a problem. The reason why this isn't a problem being in that order, though, as I said, you could just make it public and just get them all anyway. The reason why it's not a problem is because the only time we care about this list, which is inventory slots, the only time we care about it is in the inventory, and it's when we're updating the UI. And all we do is we loop through the list and check that particular slot. So it doesn't matter if we do it in order or not. It doesn't actually matter, which is fine, as long because the item list is actually, to be honest, I'm saying this now, but I'm sure it might actually cause a problem at some point. Because obviously find objects, it just finds them all, doesn't care what order. So you know what? No, we'll leave that how it was. Public inventory array. Obviously that means it's a set size, but if we set the size equals new inventory slot 20. Oh, not 220. We just want to be safe. I don't think this is essential, but we're going to do it to be safe because I don't want it causing problems later. Oh, it's updated itself. Is that because we had it like that originally? It might be. That's handy. Okay, so that's already sorted. And just quickly to make sure before we actually make anything new in this video, we add and it works. And then we go to the item add and we just say, now we want to add a health potion. And now it adds health potions. Okay, good. Good. Okay, now we can start doing the dragging. It's the bit the video is mainly about. So, what do we want to drag? We want to drag the image component, basically. So if we go to the actual inventory slot UI, we want to add. So on our images here, the actual item image, we want to add code to this for the dragging. So we're just going to call this like item drag handler. That's just a typical name for it. Okay, let's actually just put that in the right place. Okay, item drag handler. So what do we want this code to do? Well, it's going to be on every image, and I'll put it on all of them in a minute. So, well, the fastest way to put it on all of the images is actually to just remove it from there, and then just search here. Well, if we're called, no, we'll just call it image for now. These are all the slots. So if I go here to here, that selects all of these. Uh-oh. Wait. 0, 0. There we go. We want to add the item drag handler. So that's on all of them now. So when we go back here, it's on that. It'll be on all the others. So now we've got the code on all of them. Obviously, you should probably give them a unique name that isn't just image. I'm just being lazy for now. So item drag handler, we need to use some events that are already built into Unity. So we want to use I pointer down handler. Now it's not going to exist because we need to import event systems which allows us to use these events. So we got pointer down handler, I drag handler, and I pointer up handler. And these are basically methods that we have to... I'm going to do a video soon on interfaces, but for now I'll just explain it briefly. So these are events that Unity... there we go. These are events that Unity call when you do a particular thing. Now, if you can't already guess, so when you're dragging something, pointer down, pointer up, obviously. These get called. So they're like, normally you have void start from monobehavior and void updater in there, and awake and destroy, I think. But here it has other useful ones. So I'm gonna put this in the order that we call them generally. So I'll put the drag in the middle because obviously you click, then you drag, then you up. So what do we want to do on the drag handler? Well, the actual drag handler needs to store an item. It's going to store the... Well, you'll see. So we have item that we're dragging. Then we want to store a private transform. Because since we're going to be dragging it and like detaching it from the inventory, we need to store the parent when you drag it. So that if you let go on nothing and you want it to like go back to where it was, it needs to know what its original parent was. So we'll call it original parent. I'll separate the publics and privates. And we'll store a private bool is dragging. This can be used later. I'm not sure if we can use it now, but it's quite helpful to know if you're dragging, just so that you can do other things accordingly. But anyway, so we want to write some stuff in the pointer down. So what we're going to say is we're going to say... okay, so here's one problem. Well, it's not a problem. We need to basically check if the item that we're dragging is not null, basically. The problem is, how does it know if this item exists, basically? We need to, when we add an item to it, we need to... one sec. I'm a tad confused. Why did I do this in mine? I'm just checking my own thing. Let's just write in for now. So, if... Oh, I remember why. So I've done it differently in my own game. So we need to change it for this. Well, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to bother explaining how I did it. I'm going to do it better for this. Well, not better, but differently. So we don't want to actually store public item here for like the slot that it's on. We're just going to store... well, we don't really need to store anything because we've actually made it quite handy by having the inventory instance. So we're going to say if inventory.instance.slot.inventory slots. Now we need to basically not slots, dot items, item list. Now we need to give an index. Now unlike last time, we can't do transform dot get sibling index to refer to our slot, because if you actually go back into Unity, you'll see that we're in another parent. So like we want to basically check our parent's position, not ours. So quite simply, transform dot parent dot get sibling index. So if the slot, because this is on the image, if the slot, has an item, then we want to say first of all again, if event data, so that's this that gets passed in when we press the button, we want to check if the input we want to check if the button that we pressed is the left mouse button, because I'm going to be dragging with the left mouse button, and if it is, then we're going to say transform.parent. Now this is all to do with dragging, so it's quite easy just to drag and drop, but we want to make it look good. We want it so that when we drag, it doesn't mess up the UI and it just smoothly works, and the icon you're dragging is overlaying everything else. You don't want it to like go under other UI. So we have to do, we have to make it so that when we drag this item, it actually sets a new parent. We want it to we want to set this to the inventory panel and at the bottom. So that means obviously stuff in the hierarchy on the bottom renders before the after the other stuff. And if you render something afterwards, it renders on top. We want this image to render on top of all the other things. If you look now, it actually goes under other things because it's at the top of the hierarchy. So we want to basically shove it down here. But then that causes the problem. It messes up the UI because... wait, what's this? Oh, that's just because that slot's open. If we rendered it, if we put it there, it messes everything up. As you see, it adds it onto the sorter. So we want to do some other tweaking with it first. First of all, we want to say transform.parent. Yes. No. Okay, I'm sorry. I keep going off how I did it in my own game, but there's steps that I haven't done in this yet that this isn't even necessary for. All we want to do is actually set the sibling index of ourself, basically. We want to like set our new parent. So we want to just say, well, is dragging is true now that we've started. Our original parent is our parent, like it is now. We're now going to set our parent to be transform.parent.parent. Now I'll explain that a bit. So currently our parent is slot 1, but if we set it to parent.parent, our parent is now inventory panel, which shoves it at the bottom, which is the thing that we want it to do, but we also want it to not mess up the UI. So what we're going to do is we're going to get component canvas group, which I'm going to add, which lets us affect the formatting. Well, we want to disable raycasting. Oh, sorry. We want to make it so it doesn't block raycasting. Because when we're checking which slot we're dropping it over, if this does block raycasts, it won't even know that we've dropped it over a slot. So we have to add to these slots, we have to add, well, to these images, we want to add a canvas group. Let me just do the image thing again. So we want to add a canvas group like so, like that. Now if you actually look in my game, this is how I have it. So if you look on the icon, we have the canvas group and the layout element, and that stops things from being getting affected. So what happens is when we start dragging it, well, first of all, we're gonna tick the ignore layout, which means that when this thing moves, it's gonna ignore the layout element, which is quite obvious. So let's go and add that layout element. Just ignore layout. That's it. And that's on all of these now, which is what we want. So that's good. Just close that. So this means that when we now add it to the end, it doesn't move, which is what you want. You want it to stay there. The only time you want it to move is to follow the mouse cursor. So in onDrag, we can say if, and we'll just say that. So we'll say, if we've got an item in the slot, and where's and? There it is. Oh, I missed it. I can't type right now. Why is my keyboard? My keyboard's weird. It's not actually, some of the keys are not in the right place, like on what's written on the keys. So I always forget where and is, which number it's on. But anyway, and pointer event data. Oh, it's just event data. Dot button is equal to pointer event data dot left. Close. I don't know why that's there. Okay. And all we want to do every frame when that's the case is transform.position is equal to input.mouse position. So that we set the... now I'm just going to press play now so you can actually see how we're getting along. Obviously it's not going to work properly, but you'll see. So if we press play, when it lets me get back into Unity, you'll see that we can drag. So let's add an item, drag. But what happens is... oh, the required feature is not implemented. I've never seen that error before. Oh, that's like just causing an error because we haven't done the pointer up. Okay, fine. Let's do the pointer up and then we can test it. So what we want to say when we release is if event data.button, so if the button we released is the left click, dot left, we want to say is dragging is now false. We want to set our parent, dot set parent. We want to set it back to our original parent that we stored, so we go back to our original place. We want to say transform dot local position. We want to set ourselves back to 0, so vector3 dot 0. And we want to re-enable the canvas group element for the blocking raycasts. There we go. Okay, so now we shouldn't get that error. Alright, let's press play and test it. So we should be able to add, drop, and let go. Well, it's working in the hierarchy, but it's not visual. Oh, there we go. Oh, it is working. Oh, I think I was just being silly. But yeah, we drag and we let go and it resets it back. As you see, the image component on the hierarchy comes out while we're dragging, so it renders on top of it all. And then when we let go, it zips back to its original place. Okay, so that's the first part. And then the last part we need to do is we need to make it so that when we let go on a slot, it puts it in that slot and then basically moves it from one to the other. So what we want to do is we want to go to our inventory slot UI. So there we go. We want to make an event. So I drop handler. If you haven't already done using event systems, you're going to have to just put that in. Here's our interface. We will move it down because I want to move it down. And all we want to say is in here that we want to know what item we're dropping on the slot. So we want to say, well, item dropped item is equal to event data dot pointer drag, which as you see is the object that's receiving it, dot get component item drag handler. So now we've got reference to that. But before we actually do it, we want to get the transform dot parent dot get sibling index. Now this seems like a very convoluted thing, but what that's doing, I know it's not done yet. What that's doing is we're getting the inventory slot of the item that we dropped it from. Okay, and now all we have to do is say inventory dot instance dot items item list, and then we just put the square brackets around because that's going to return an integer for the index. There we go, boom. So that's the dropped item. We now have reference to the item that we've dropped on the slot. Now we can just say if event data dot pointer drag dot transform dot parent dot name, if that's equal to game object dot name, then we can just return. That just basically means don't do anything if we're dropping it on this slot. If the slot of that is the same as this slot, then don't do anything. Then we want to say if. Then we want to have there's like a few different cases. There's the case that we drop it on a slot that's empty, and there's a case that we drop it on the slot that has something in. So we're going to first of all do the case that it's empty. So if inventory dot instance dot item list, and then we want to check the one that this inventory slot is currently in. So we can just say transform dot get sibling index. Yeah. So if that inventory instance does not equal null, so if the or we'll say is null. So if the if this slot we're dropping the item on is null, then we'll just say yeah, I'll think of a neater way to do this next time, but we'll just get it working. So we'll say that particular slot the item. Oh no, that is the item. So is equal to dropped item. There we go. So if the slot is empty, then it's going to be set equal to dropped item. Then we can say inventory.instance.update slot UI. Let's just have a quick try at that. Now, what that's not going to do is it's not going to clear the one we dragged from, so it's technically going to have like a duplication bug, but we'll see. There you go. Wherever we drag items to, it has a duplication bug, but that's to be expected because we've said, yep, set that new one, but we haven't actually cleared the one we moved from. So, to clear the one we moved from, we'll just say, before we actually update the slot UI, we're just going to say inventory.instance.item list. And we just want to get the yeah, we want to set one of them to null, and the one we want to set to null is whichever one we got. So we just want to say dot transform dot parent. I get sibling index. It's just that is the index that we're setting to null. Okay, but as I said, yeah, we'll neaten it all up. Don't worry. So this should now be able to drag. So we'll add a few items. We'll say drag that to there. Boom. I keep thinking there's a little bug, but yeah, sometimes it appears to bug, but sometimes it doesn't. Maybe on the drag handler. Have I done anything wrong here? Let me just have a quick check. So if that particular thing, it has an item on it and that, and set the position. Let me just do a debug.log dragging, because I feel like this isn't getting called or something. The onDrag isn't getting called right in some cases. Okay, add item. Yeah, as you see, so it's not getting called sometimes. So these, oops. So inventory.instance.item list, whichever one we are. Okay, I feel like the problem that's happening is, yeah, I see what's happening. So we're getting our parents index, but that's not going to really work because we've already kind of changed that by changing the parent. So all we really need to do is, we're already storing the original parent, so we can just say original parent, which is the slot.transform.get sibling index. Surely that'll be it. That's my quick fix. There we go. Boom, boom. Add another item here. Drag there. Drag there. We've got one more case, which is dragging it onto one that already has a slot, an item there. So all we want to do is we want to say else if, well, we just put an else because it's either null or it isn't. We'll say we want to store a temp item, if you know what I mean, because we'll be swapping two over. So we'll say item temp item equals inventory.instance.item list, and we want to transform.get sibling index. So we want to say the temp item is the one that's currently in this slot, and then we want to say the item that's currently in this slot is now equal to the dropped item, and then all we need to do is say, instead of setting the other one to null, instead of setting the one we've dragged from to null, we want to set it equal to temp item. And then we just want to update the UI. And that should be it. I did rush through that a little bit then, so we'll see. It's just because this video is getting on quite a bit, but you know, it's quite an in-depth video, so there's quite a lot to go through. So we're going to add a few items, and then just so we know if we're actually swapping, we're going to add some health potions too. Drag to there, swap, swap, drag to there, drag to here, swap those around, move that there, swap. There we go, it works. And this video is half an hour long, so I definitely want to end it now. So all I want to say is, we'll continue making this series. Obviously, if you like these videos, then please like, subscribe, comment, everything. Join the Discord server if you want to ask any questions or just take part in the community. My channel has just been monetized, so thanks everyone for helping me reach that goal, and obviously that should help quite a bit. So just thanks for everything, basically. I should not blabber too much because it's a half-an-hour video. I'm gonna have fun uploading this. So thanks for watching, and goodbye.